Dobar dan, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here. It's a great honor, and I thank you very much for the warm reception you gave me so far. I'd like to share our experience about passive houses. I'd like to share the idea that the passive house is not something to fear, nothing to be complicated, nothing to be expensive, nothing to be highly complex. I'd like to share our experience, my personal experience with the concept, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about our network. I believe that the network is one of the prerequisites to get a pipe dream into national standard. The network in Austria for Passive House consists of 320 members. One of the members is Xela Austria. You might have heard of this firm. And we share experience with universities, with education, with training, with research, and with application in small communities. And we have a lot of small planners and experts on a local level. It's a success story in Austria, the Passive House movement. My predecessor in the chair of IG Passivhaus just finished the embassy of the Austrian embassy in Jakarta, in Indonesia. So it's the first passive house in the tropical areas. And you wonder why we do passive houses in tropical areas. We just found out that it's a perfect way to cope with their climate. It's similar climate as in Iceland or somewhere else on the globe. So all these preconceptions, like you can't open the windows, it's too complicated, it's too costly, I will share some of the experiences I have. Of course, I'm an architect, and I have the opportunity to see and to share, or to compare different concepts with the passive house. You see here is this energy certificate. It's one of the famous buildings in London. People in London are not ashamed to put something on public display like this here. As we heard this morning that the energy certificates are one way to introduce and to make aware the situation about energy consumption. This is a famous building done by famous architects in London, and it's a new building. My experience in Austria is using these certificates on washing machines, for instance. We found out that the washing machines, they don't sell any B or C classified washing machines any longer, because people start to compare, and comparison is one of the means to get things moving, to get a subject into the brains of each individual person. I show you the starting points in my career as an architect. We started in 1989 to think and to look into passive house concepts. You see this is a very basic double glazed facade as a refurbishment of an existing primary school building in rural Austria. Not very spectacular, but we learned a lot of lessons, something like, for instance, to make use of controlled air. So controlled air is one component of the passive house concept, and this component is highly delicate to deal with, especially in classrooms. We have all been brought up in old, shabby classrooms, and we know what happens after the 4th hour of teaching. It normally does not only depend on good teachers, it can be depending on air quality. And the air quality inside such a building reaches sometimes levels which are toxic levels in CO2 inside these classroom buildings. And we say Passivhaus, to one part, is talking about comfort, talking about the way to deal with sound, air inside the classroom. So I think we should look into that. So this first building in 1809 was the starting point to look into the concepts towards whole concepts as the building as a whole. The kindergarten, 2003, was covered by the media. We had a lot of public debate on why do we build kindergartens as passive houses. We learned in theory that the use of radiation inside the building, use of the children, of the warmth of the person, can be participating in, sharing in with the heat demand. We learned on the other side that small children are sometimes sick and it's really cold, and so it was really complicated, and it was highly innovative to try this out. I must say that there was a lot of effort put into research doing this. I will show the link then later on where you can download the final report on that building, because we learned a lot, and whole Europe learned how to do the planning for a kindergarten. What's the innovative thing? It's not a compact building. It's very. I have to excuse myself. I'm an architect, and I have to talk about some architectural details now. Hope I don't bore you. It's the challenge was here to have a single-story building, not compact, very wide, very widespread. To do that on the fresh meadow, and it's not used for whole day because we have kindergarten normally in morning hours. So I'd like to briefly show you the concept of that building. You see the floor plan. One thing was to make use of the layout towards using spaces in different methods. You can see very compact solutions with the group rooms, with the serving rooms at the back, and more important and more specific is the section. In the section you see quite a number of know-how we packed into that. For instance, in Austria we still have the legislative prerequisite for public buildings to be 3 meters of clear inner height for rooms, for each room. And we argue that children with 1.2 meter maximum height would not need 3 meters high rooms. So what we did was we argued with the air exchange in the room. So we got some exceptions, and we started to create some areas which are not 3 meters high in inner height, but have sometimes 1.8 or 1.9 meters inner height. And the building board accepted that as being part of the whole concept, saying that the whole concept means we have fresh air inside and we have light inside, and we used quite a number of tools to reach that. And this is one of those important points to raise for architects, which means that some of the architects are really resisting applying new technologies because they fear to be kicked out of their ivory towers. My experience is that if you look into that carefully, you have to start with the training of an architect, and you have to start with your conception of how to deal with the building itself. As an architect, I say that we have to optimize systems as we have them. And optimizing systems means that we have to make use of all the technical possibilities we have, and it's amazing what kind of tools and gadgets we have and at a very low cost rate to apply them to a building. A building is much more than architecture. It's an organic and lively something to be created by a team of architects and by a team of experts. So we have to introduce and we have to let some more other experts into the game of producing and creating a building, which means, for instance, that we have building physicists from the beginning. We have climate engineer from the beginning, from the first sketch design, in order to reach solutions which are not commonly used and which are not commonly known. Wolfgang Feist, he was the founder of the Passivhaus idea. I must point out that to me it's not a religious belief that we have a religion to follow, but to be aware of our responsibility we have. And I think as an architect we have lots of responsibility to, first of all, convince the client, and to me that starts in the beginning as that I personally have to believe in the system, and I did that in building my own passive house 12 years ago. So I live in a passive house and I'm still alive, and I'm still convinced that things are working. You see here a number of, no, you can't really see that, but you can envision the way of thermal optimizing by the way of simulating the thermal situation. We have used a couple of tools to do that, and for instance, you see in the right corner the daylight check-in, which is part of the requirement we have to deal with before starting the project. In this case, we compared costs, which is one of those key issues in every aspect as an architect. What are the costs? What are the extra costs? And I won't bore you with that because you can't read it anyway. We did a lot of experimenting using locally available material. We used the straw, which was round the corner available. Of course, it was a research project, and I would not suggest that as being the solution for the wide application. But according to what we tried out, we compared the results. And at the end of the day, you will get the bill. And the bill here shows that the heating costs for this building, for this kindergarten, was less money needed as the internet provider needed for this kindergarten to be run. And this is something all the politicians would understand. So the mayor of this town, this very small town, he was not ordering a Passivhaus kindergarten, but at that time we presented the result. He was really happy to be fond of having a kindergarten and having thousands of experts visiting this as a demonstration project. So besides that, we saved 40 tons of CO2, which I come up now to invite you to think of that too. One of these side products of the energy certificate is this chart. And this chart, I have to say that we use that chart convincing the client to show and to indicate what's happening in this building. You see dotted line, this is the building inside. You see solar gains. If it's intellectually done, if it's cleverly done, you would use the sun as one of those major energy source. And you see the heating demand on the left corner, the green one, and you see the relation between these, the gains and the losses. And you see that there's a lot of unused gains pumped out of the building. So if you do that in this way, you have to understand the building itself, and you clear the way to get accustomed with the methods, with the tools to reach that. And in the end, you will get the bill, which is quite attractive, I think, especially if you deal with crude oil prices today. I think it's 126 US dollars a day, a barrel. So, of course, we had 8 weeks of construction. We had, it's a timber, mixed solid timber construction. I must say clearly that I don't sell any products, but I sell the idea and to optimizing systems, and these optimizing systems means that we make use of the material in accordance to their application and to the possibilities. And I think we can learn a lot if we really clearly look into the details of each building material. So there's some images on the existing. You can see on the right side that light daylight is quite important in the building concept, and using the clever daylight concept, you can save a lot of extra energy too. I'd like to invite you to make use of the excessive knowledge we have in Austria. There's a project line which is called Building of the Future, Building of Tomorrow. You can see that on the web page in Austrian. It's called Haus der Zukunft.at. It's written there. You can download free of charge hundreds of final reports of demonstration projects we have so far done. There's a lot of interesting projects showing that we have a lot of measured projects. So one of those preconceptions is it does all depend on measurements and on calculations. So we have a 10 years experience of measuring buildings, existing buildings. Have a look into this and you will be quite astounded, and I really welcome you if there's any questions to that, because this is publicly funded, and make use of it. It's a great quarry of information. Back to the Passive House. Why was the Passive House such a success story in Austria? We did this survey in 2006, the keyword Passive House, and it shows that Austria adopted it very quickly. To my point of view, I think part of the reason is that there is a public funding for housing. And the public funding for housing shows that there's small incentives given to private house owners to improve their building and to newly construct the building. And there's a close track of how the money is used. And it's quite amazing that which we heard from the Brundtland report in the historic way, how we came up with the green concepts. We said that the housing funding in Austria was one of those promoters to get the idea of saving energy and resources on the way to where we are now. You see the statistics in Austria. I'm always asked, how many houses do we have in passive house quality? We stopped counting. Just for an example, last week there were another 2,700 newly built apartment units in Vienna. There's another 4,000 units in planning in Vienna. So it doesn't really make sense that to count all these, the passive houses. We say it has been arriving, the standard has been introduced. We have a lot of prefab housing companies, of course, selling passive houses. So the point is, where are we heading to and what do we do out of this? And to me, we have to do a couple of things. First of all, we'll have to get the quality sharp. Quality sharp means that if we have a proper envelope on the construction, then there's never ever any disadvantage of having this envelope of the house being airtight. There's no disadvantage of having an envelope airtight because there's no loss of energy. That's clear and simple. And to me, we will hear that this afternoon again, to me, solid constructions are a little bit easier in getting constructions airtight than light constructions because of the jointing, because of the fittings, and because of the exact gluing of the components. That's what I mentioned before. There's a small subsidy given. We have the GDP per capita in Austria 2009, and out of this GDP we have yearly 1.7 billion euros a year, which runs into the housing subsidies. It's a very small amount of money. It's 0.6% of this GDP per capita. It doesn't really hurt, but with this 0.6%, we move quite a lot. And to me, legislation is one part, incentives given is the other part, and I think it's quite welcome. It's quite easy to introduce a standard, a national standard, in giving small subsidies. So these subsidies are these are loans and credits, and they have to be paid back. So it's not given away. It's safely invested and invested into the future. We heard that before this morning. If you compare the different scenarios in Europe, you have national concepts, and these concepts vary quite a lot. It's quite amazing to see what France and what Great Britain is doing. It's really a big deal to do that, to achieve all that. I'm not too sure what to talk after 2020, but what that indicates, that's a legal framework, and this has been introduced, this has been adopted. It became national law in Austria. In Austria, we are, I guess, as in every other country, we are perfect experts in in preventing and neglecting laws. We have the same problem as you have here, but at least that's the legal framework. That's the base where we are talking about, and I think it's perfectly right that we have to get the experts now to believe that and to believe into introducing this. I think it's not a technical problem to achieve that, not at all. The problem is somewhere else. It's here in our heads. This is a little bit difficult to read, but it's the keyword of carbon trade. I'd like to raise an issue here which is neglected internationally. It's not a national subject. Carbon trade is something introduced 10 years ago, and still we are lacking behind. I did not find any figures on Bosnia-Herzegovina. I found the Austrian that's the lowest line here. We are short of the Kyoto aims quite substantially, and if people turning this into money, which is counted here for 16 euros for ton CO2, then we're talking about billions of euros to be transported to Brussels. I'm wondering what is going to happen there. But this is legal. This has been adopted. So we have adopted all these targets. And now it's quite interesting too. If you look at the carbon chart, so it's a chart dealing with the carbon trade. Then we saw, because of these turbulences now with the euro, we said the price fell to 9.9 euros, but I think the price will raise. Great Britain is using £75 per ton to calculate for the next 5 years. So it's been calculated, and it's a factor. And I think if we get these economic experts into the boat with the planners and with the architects and with the housing estate, real estate people, then we can close ranks and get some really interesting possible ways of doing that. As I said, Passivhaus standard has arrived in Austria. That's the biggest Passivhaus in the world. It's still the biggest. It's 26,000 square meters. It's in Innsbruck, and it's been in use. We just opened another with the Youth Olympic Games this year. We have another 16,000 nearby. So if you ask me how many Passivhouses in Austria, I could not answer that. I'd like to show you some of our examples of our workshop. This is a primary school which we did 2 years ago. This is a refurbished school. So this is a refurbished school out of the 80s. And the standard in heating demand was 219 kilowatt hours per annum and square meter. And we brought that down to 14 kilowatt hours. And again, the mayor was simply to be convinced. Is this a Passivhaus? Yes, it is. Passivhouses, they don't need to look like thermal flask with 60 centimeters of insulation packed into and small. I must admit, this is a national park center building, and it's not been used in the winter. So we did a little bit easier with that because there's no winter period to heat. But the exciting project is that we use 120 meters of glass facade without any exterior shading. There's no shading outside here. And you would not believe that this is possible to do that. Now, I'm really fond of this building because it was a 1-year intensive planning with the climate engineers, with the building physicists, and with the glass structural designers, how to do that. So what we did was the shading is printed on the glass. And we did the calculations with using the thermal concept of optimizing the system, and we played for quite a while to optimize it. And I think what you can see is, and I can really invite you to look into these possible ways of doing that, you can build anything in accordance to saving energy. And I think it's nothing insane to save energy. I'll give you another example here. This building here, I think it's from the 1850s. There was electricity done here. In the 1870s, there was a public debate on whether to introduce electricity, to lose contacts and wiring within the buildings, because it was a new technology, and new technologies were scary. And nobody really knew what could happen if you introduce electric wiring in a building. So, to me, to make use of intelligence, of knowledge, and of everything you can make use of, then you could come up with different... Huh? No. That's... Okay. I'm afraid this is not Bill Gates. This is another problem. As I mentioned, the tools we have. There's another tool which I'd like to show you. This is the building component catalog. You can order that. It's a small book. Oh no, it's a big book, but it shows you details of how to deal with the joints, with the calculating of the detail. There's another book coming out these days to look into renovation, to look in refurbishing, and it's good to use because it's simple, and we make use of all the knowledge we've got. Another tool, which is called EcoSoft. It's a small Excel tool, and I think it's cost 100 euros or something, ordered at ibo.at, which is available in English as well, where you calculate the component, the building material, the component, and the overall solution, because I think what we will be entering into a phase of calculating CO2 levels. I think this is going to happen in the near future, according to what we have signed for, or at least our politicians have done that. With this tool, you could, there's a small dialogue. You can use any building material and then make a calculations. And with these calculations, it gives you an index which comprises of three categories. There's the CO2 producing the product, the acidification potential, the SO2 level, and the primary energy input. And these come together to one figure, and this figure gives you the indicator what the carbon footprint of the building would be. And I think this, again, is something we architects have to learn to get a feeling how the building performs. And I think with your products you're promoting here, it's the best way of dealing with that, because you can indicate what your products are. And as I mentioned before, we make aware of what kind of resources are available, and I think we should really stick to the idea that we make use of the resources we have. There's a lot of resources. So compared to the available resources to the energy resources currently used, so it's a standard of 2009, you can see what's available. And to me, this is part of the game as an architect to start with at the scratch, to look how can a building perform, and what can we do in the first place to decide whether the building is feasible or not. Another very simple tool, which is introduced in Vienna, it's the solar potential real estate register. You can download that too. You can for any location in Vienna, you can know what kind of amount of solar energy can be gained. So cleverly used, and why not? And I must come back a little bit to the concept of passive houses. The passive house, again, if it's cleverly made, if the building hull, the envelope is well done, then of course we can take PV panels to get the energy needed then to heat and to ventilate the building itself. But first of all, you have to have a sound, a properly designed building envelope. That's the prerequisite. I don't know whether I run. Okay, good, perfect. I'd like to invite you to another thing, which is the summer school in Vienna. We introduced that last year. The perfect thing is 6 universities, six Viennese universities are working together to offer this summer course in Vienna. It's a great opportunity. It's not really costly. It gives you 3 weeks of intensive training for students, for postgraduates, for for decision makers. Make use of it. It's great, and it's a great opportunity to see Vienna, which is not a bad city too. I'd like to invite you into. It's a little bit delicate to mention that word here in Sarajevo, but I'd like to think in way of revolutionary ways of using your knowledge, using your head and your brain and your stomach to come up with different solutions like our fathers had brought up and our teachers had taught us. I think we have to change that. And that's my contributions, and I welcome you to have some discussions in the coffee break.